Good morning. We are now live on Facebook. We are live on the radio. And I've got Representative John McCravy with us from Greenwood and our surrounding areas. And I tell you what, it has been quite a last week down there in Columbia. And John McCravy, Representative John McCravy, has been attacked. I don't remember seeing this kind of vicious stuff going on. And I thought with a Republican-controlled House that surely they would just be getting stuff done. But obviously there's something else going on. Good morning, John. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Ann. I'm doing fine.
So, you are the head of the family caucus. I mean, some of this actually started back in January, didn't it?
Well, I guess you could say that. I mean, we expected, the Human Life Protection Act to come back up this year like we were promised. We expected a lot of good bills like the, keeping men out of girls' bathrooms and locker rooms and stuff to be easy to happen. We expected a lot of good things to happen, and we expected a budget that was going to cut the budget but not increase people's taxes.
Right.
As a result, I mean, none of that stuff has happened, and I could probably give you a list. If I looked around here long enough, I could find a list of things that have not happened. So you got a lot of frustrated people in the House of Representatives, and so yeah, we had a on judiciary. I've complained about judiciary openly. We had a liberal Democrat appointed to be the family law subcommittee chair. She's pro-choice. We've had different problems, but some of that's infighting and some of it's private conversations. But I never thought that somebody would try to assassinate my character. And when they tried, I spoke out against casinos because that's the big push. The Republicans, instead of worried about the things we ought to be worried about, we're worried about casinos coming into South Carolina. So I went to the subcommittee and spoke against that. I've looked at all the studies on casinos about how they increase the crime rate. They actually hurt your local economy when you put them in there, and all the all the people that get addicted to gambling and different kind of things. And so it's a strain on public services. Sometimes it costs your state a lot more in social costs than it does give you any economic benefit. So we, I spoke about that, and I was the only one to speak against this casino bill in the subcommittee. They held another committee meeting, and they didn't allow anybody to speak, and they voted it out. So now it's on the floor of the House, and this week we're going to be spending our valuable time debating whether casinos should come into South Carolina. So it's a sad state of affairs. But look, I made a lot of people with money mad when I spoke up about casinos because there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars of campaign contributions by this Santee Development Company, they call it. It's a fellow who tried to get casinos in other states, and so they've been giving out no telling which of these shady PACs that don't have to divulge where they get their money from, no telling how many of them got casino money. And so that's what I'm fighting against. And when they can't shut you up in a committee or on the floor, they'll try to shut you up a different way. So I immediately started getting last week this shady PAC, the same PAC, by the way, that has sent out a lot of stuff against the Freedom Caucus, which are all Republicans, hit me in my district with 2 or 3 of these text messages saying McCravy is not a conservative. And I mean, people laughed when they saw it, and they ridiculed it. And then they sent out another one saying I was against jobs, which is totally false. And the people, it backfired on them. I believe they pulled those ads down almost immediately because the feedback was bad.
Right.
And you're messing up with an ad when you're making somebody. They probably helped me more than they hurt me by sending out that garbage. And then, lo and behold, a reporter gets an anonymous tip that McCravy said something in a private conversation, but nobody would say who gave him the anonymous tip. And then right after those ads came down, all of a sudden we have a person walking out in the lobby saying, "Oh yeah, I can confirm that statement was made." The statement was supposedly about the fact. I was supposedly said something to the effect of, "I don't want to serve with a Jew and a gay." Nothing could be further from the truth, because I've served on committees with Beth Bernstein. I respect Beth Bernstein. She's a liberal Democrat for sure, and she's pro-choice. She wants to kill babies. But I've served with her. I've never said an impolite thing to her. We've always gotten along. We sit 2 seats apart on the Judiciary Committee, and I never use the word Jew to start with. I don't use that word except to talk about the Jewish faith. And so maybe I did complain to somebody in a private conversation and said, I wish we didn't have a liberal Democrat as a sub-chair of the Family Laws Committee. Yeah, I probably said that, but I never disparaged her as a Jew. As a matter of fact, we got up together to honor Israel and the Jewish people and condemn Hamas. We all got up on the floor and did that. I led that effort. So to say that is just beyond the pale, and anybody that knows me knows that's not true. So anyway, let's move on to a more pleasant question.
Well, you know what? This is kind of interesting. I just want to. So we're going to spend the week talking about this. And last time it was the marijuana, bringing legalized marijuana into the state. It sounds a little bit like the same thing, except now they're attacking you. But that same push to bring legalized marijuana in.
Well, when I get criticized by Republicans, and Republicans introduce these crazy bills, I'm trying to go by what the Republican platform says, that we don't believe in legalizing illegal drugs, that we believe in protecting life at all stages. Those are both in the Republican platform, that we oppose gambling and casinos. It specifically says casinos in the platform.
Right.
So it's really a sad situation, and I'm trying to stand up for Republican values, and yet I've got certain Republicans coming after me.
Yeah. So of course, your Human Life Protection Act has never been. It has never made it to the floor, has it, John, for this session?
No, it hasn't, and they had promised it would. Both the Senate and the House leadership promised in 2024 that would, in 2023, that we would get it up after this last election, because, and here's why. The Senate has 20 different members now. We have a good chance. The 3 sister senators were taken out by the voters.
Right.
And so we've got a good chance of getting that bill passed now, but I can't get it passed. I can't get it to the floor of the House. If I could get it to the floor of the House, it'd pass. If I could get it to the floor of the Senate, it would pass. But unfortunately, it's being held up. And, Students for Life, who worked hard to get the word out about this, and they actually do get out in elections. Their action pack gets out in elections and goes to people's districts and hands out flyers. Well, they're very upset about it. And I do not coordinate. Let me tell you this. It's illegal to coordinate with a PAC, a C4 PAC, okay? So if I told them what to do and where to go, I would get in trouble. Well, they're mad because it hadn't gotten out, and they went to the speaker's district. They went to my chairman's district. They went to other places. They put out flyers. They did a lot of things. I had nothing to do with that. But I was asked to commit a crime, basically, and write a letter telling them not to go to people's districts. I'm not going to do that. So you know me better than that. I'm not going to do something that's unethical or against the law. And if you want to look it up, it's South Carolina Code Annotated 8-13-1300 subsection 33 that defines coordination with a C4. So I'm not allowed to do that, and I'm not going to do it. They asked the Family Caucus to do it. Family Caucus is not going to do it. We do not coordinate with third-party groups. So they got mad because I wouldn't do that, and maybe do something that other people are doing with their PACs, sending out stuff in my district to retaliate. So it's a dirty business down there, and that's kind of the best way I can explain it.
Well, John, this really is a sad state of affair. I mean, Republicans, excuse me, we're looking so forward to having teetotaling control down there, and it looks to me like it's a disaster going on down there. I mean, I just cannot believe that y'all cannot get together and get the work done for the people.
I couldn't agree with you more, and the problem is we have Republicans that are actually functioning as Democrats. So that's the problem.
Well, okay. Well, that's kind of hard to believe. I mean, I believe it, but I mean that is kind of hard to believe. Now, the tax bill that they had wanted the cutting of the taxes. The governor wanted a policy that said that everybody had to have skin in the game, reducing the income tax to 3.99. That got booted out. Nobody came in and supported it. I know you were one of the first ones to turn your back on it. But now there's a new one that's down there. And y'all only have 3 days left in session. How are these things going to work? What can you tell us about that? And then I also want to talk about school funding. But first off, let's talk about the income tax.
Well, when they came out with their big plan, they had a huge press conference. Everybody came to it. Grover Norquist was there. They had the Senate, the House, and even the governor. Well, when they got down to the details, though, the problem that came out was it was going to give 60%, the supposed tax cut was going to give 60% of South Carolinians a tax raise. And by the way, let me say this, all these tax cuts that are being proposed, they cut a few hundred million, but we have a surplus of $1 billion plus that amount. So we're going to be spending another $1 billion this year in the budget. We're increasing the spending by $1 billion. So it's hard to say you're having a tax cut of $300 or $400 million when you're increasing the budget by $1 billion. But let me get back to the question. So a lot of people would end up with tax raises instead of tax cuts. Well,
right.
Why can't you do a tax cut where everybody gets some kind of tax cut? Now they've come out with a plan. Well, they came out with Plan B, then Plan C. We're now down to the 14th different alternative of this bill, and it's gone away from a flat tax now. They're back to the graduated tax, and it's still going to raise 25% of the people's tax bills. Now, some people would get a lower tax. Some people would get more. The biggest amount of tax breaks are going to people who make over $150,000 or $500,000. So they're getting a big tax break.
And it's particularly hurting those on the lower end, isn't it?
It is. I mean, when you say hurt, I mean, it's probably only about an average of, I'm just guessing, about $100 that they're going to have to pay that they didn't have to pay before, and I don't know about that. I mean, it's kind of questionable, but, it probably does hurt the lower tax income people worse. And people that making $30,000 a year, they're
Right.
going to have a tax increase. I mean, come on, we don't need to increase taxes for people making $30,000. They
Exactly.
barely make it. They're the working poor. You know, you can't support a family on that anymore. So anyway, I'm really reluctant. I mean, I'm all for a tax cut, but you got to do it the right way, and I think it ought to be across the board.
Correct.
So I'm really having a hard time with this latest proposal. And I don't know what Republicans are going to end up doing, but
Right.
you know, it's a tough issue.
Well, here's another one. What about this $18,000 increase to to each and every legislature down there for in-district expense? I know that was in the Senate. Is the House going to take that one up? I haven't seen it. Is the House going to take that up?
I really don't know, Ann. I mean, it's up to these committees whether that gets out, and you know, I don't know. It's going to be a close question as to whether people vote for that. I mean, I certainly probably won't vote for it. You know, I just think at a time where we're asking some people to take raises, take a tax increase, I'm certainly not going to ask for more money for in-district expenses. Now, let me tell you about these in-district expenses. So most people take that money. Most legislators take that money and just put it in their pocket. Now, I'm not saying they don't have expenses, but I don't think anybody can account for it. You know, I put mine in a separate account, and I spend it only for in-district expenses. So, you know, that's just the way I do. I know Billy Garrett does that as well. You know, that's to me, that's accountability. But nevertheless, I mean, there's nothing illegal about what the other ones are doing. They're just not keeping track of it.
Well, but the other thing, John, is they didn't really expose the fact that they get gas mileage for gas every time you travel down there, and you get a per diem for every day. I think it's over $202 or something that you get. So people were saying, oh, my God, $1,000. But in truth, you do get paid for going back and forth for your travel time and everything on that, correct?
True. That's true. We do. We get a per diem of whatever a hotel is supposed to cost, and it's probably not as much as hotels cost now.
Right.
But we do get that. We get gas mileage for driving back and forth. But we do have a lot of expenses in our districts. You know, I like to frame up, for instance, and buy certificate covers and frame certificates and things like that I just pay for out of that money.
Right.
You know, and sometimes I sponsor events and help nonprofits out with a sponsorship or something like that. You know, I spend that money in my district, but nevertheless, you know, there are a lot of expenses that people don't think about. You know, and I mean, I've heard some people say, well, I drive all over the district. Well, to me, that's kind of part of your job, but
right.
You know,
well, the thing I wouldn't have had as much problem with it if they'd split it up, like maybe $750, you know, something like that. But $1,500. I mean, the teachers are getting $1,500 for a year raise increase, and the Senate has put it out there $1,500 a month. That's the comparison that I've made. I thought that's a little bit too much for me, but
yeah.
Anywho.
Well, of course, I will say this, and I'm not defending us, but teachers get a raise every year since I've been there. But we hadn't had a raise since 1970 or 90 or something like that.
1995, I think, somewhere in the 90s. Yeah. Yes, that's true.
You know, what we really ought to do is just have an independent commission that keeps up with inflation or something like that. You know, I mean, that's what we need to do.
Correct.
I don't even feel comfortable voting, honestly, on my own pay. I think I have a conflict of interest on that, so I'm not going to vote if it comes up.
I like that. Conflict of interest. I like that. That's a good one. I have a conflict of interest. You certainly do. And all of you do.
Right. Voting yourself a raise, I mean, that's a conflict of interest.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so that's kind of where we are. and you were going to ask about the school.
Right.
Thing,
The school districts are screaming, and our school district here, District 50, they had a work session on Friday. They could be short $1 million in what they usually would anticipate as funding coming from the state. I understand Greenville could be short $12 million. And this is something that was put in the budget, something back in 2023. Is there anything that can be done? Because we're having John Kynard on this afternoon to talk about this. Is there anything that can be done on the state level? What can you tell us about that?
Well, I certainly didn't vote to cut any school districts that was divulged to me, cut money from school districts. First of all, if this is in this budget, then it was put in either by the House or the Senate. The budget now has gone to, and let me tell you, Hillary Crago, to her credit, sent me, slideshows of this. But to be honest with you, this funding is so complicated. This formula is so complicated, and they've changed it over and over again. I have no idea what I'm even looking at, and I'm an attorney. So, I need to hire a forensic accountant to even figure this report out. But basically what they're saying is the way the new formula is, we're going to lose $1 million with District 50. So that's not acceptable to me. At a time where we got surplus money in Columbia and we're going to be cutting our school districts. So something's wrong with that. So, but where the budget is right now, it's coming back from the Senate, and we're either going to vote to concur or non-concur. We always vote non-concur, and then it'll go to this conference committee. And whoever gets appointed to this conference committee by the Speaker and by the President of the Senate, that's who's going to come back with the compromise. So those people are the ones that are going to determine whether this stays in the budget or not. Then the question comes back, do you vote for the entire budget when it comes back, and the only opportunity we'll have is an up or down vote on the budget, the whole budget, and the whole budget always has things in it you don't like,
right?
But the question is, are you going to grind South Carolina to a halt because it's got something in it you don't like, and that's always the dilemma. I usually default voting for the budget because we have important things like Lambda University, Piedmont Technical College, all these things that need to be funded. We can't just shut them down. So we got to be responsible. But I hope that this conference committee looks at this and maybe changes this formula and gets it back where it's supposed to be. And the school district is doing the right thing by putting pressure on their legislators, by putting pressure on the leadership, and I'll be speaking to our leadership about this. But there's only so much I can do. I'm not on the Ways and Means committee that does these, and their subcommittees that come up with these formulas to start with. So we have to kind of rely on experts. But I hope they haven't done this, and if they have, I hope it gets fixed in the conference committee that's coming up.
Well, isn't Senator Billy Garrett on the Ways and Means in the Senate?
He is. He's on the counterpart of that. He's on the Finance Committee. I haven't spoken to him about this issue, but I'm sure Hillary has. And I want to thank her for being involved. That's important.
Absolutely. Well, we are having John Kynard to come on and try to explain what's happening and what could be the offshoot if this isn't fixed, and to put pressure on all of y'all to do something about this. Now, let me ask you something. How in 3 days can you get all the things that should be being taken up? I don't see it happening, and yet you have to be finished on May 8th. Is that correct?
That's correct, all except for the budget. We can
right.
come back on the budget at any time during the year, and chances are that's what's going to happen this year. I believe the budget will probably be put off, and we'll be coming back late June, maybe July. I've even heard rumors that we won't even have a budget this year. We'll just do the continuing resolution.
You know what, John? John, that would be a travesty for Republicans being in charge in South Carolina. That would be a travesty.
Yes, it would. I'm not going to argue with you.
Unbelievable. Well, I certainly hope that you are going to be able to get things, get that ship headed in the right direction. Now, what about one more question? What about the family caucus? Because you are the head of the family caucus here in South Carolina in the legislature. What is this going to mean? Where the way they have hit this hard? How have you lost members out of the family caucus?
Well, here's the thing, if you want to picture a church with a pastor, and on one side, on the left side, you've got on one side of the church you've got all Confederate soldiers, and on the other side of the church you've got all Union soldiers. That's what we got going on. So I've got, the family caucus is very difficult to hold together right now because I've got Republican caucus members that hate Freedom Caucus members and vice versa. So it's a terrible situation. I've tried to stay neutral in that and tried to point out, that we need to be unified and go forward. But, this civil war that's going on down there is now affecting the family caucus too. So I hate it. But, I've had people threaten to get out of it because they're concerned about what the Republicans are doing. And I've had others threaten to get out because of the Freedom Caucus. So who knows, Ann? Just pray for us. It's a tough time in the legislature.
Well, John, as we wind this up, I really hope that y'all can pull this together because it is about the people of South Carolina. And this is what is so frustrating is to see this, particularly among, I'm going to say it, Republicans.
I hate to use that word, but for some of the problem, but part of the problem lies with Republicans. I will admit that.
So, I think people should be calling down there. Shouldn't they be calling their legislators and say these issues are important, like the school, like some of these other things, and get these issues straightened out before the end? But I don't see how you're going to do it in 3 days.
It's going to be tough, and, they did away with the crossover date, so now everything just gets put off till the last day of the session. Instead of a artificial date where things don't get considered. Now things are going down to the last day. So you can imagine the frenetic atmosphere this week.
Yeah, that is true. I'm going to let you go. I know you've got a lot to do. I really appreciate you taking time with us this morning because I know a lot of people have been scratching their heads and trying to figure out what's going on. I look at this stuff every day that y'all are doing down there between the Senate and the House. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me how it's coming together here, particularly at the end.
Well, I hope I've explained some of this. It's very complicated. There's personalities involved. There's Republicans introducing Democrat bills. It's just wild. But I hope I at least gave some semblance of an explanation of what's going on.
You certainly have. It's been a very good discussion here this morning. Thank you for taking the time, Representative John McCravy. If anybody wants to reach out to you, John, how can they reach out to you?
Well, I've given out my cell phone, and I'll still be willing to do that as long as the public continues to not abuse that, and that's 864-396-3110. That's the best way to get me. There's all these phone numbers on the website. One of them goes to my assistant, our suite assistant in Columbia. That's not always real helpful. She will answer the phone, but I'm not there.
Right.
And I can't always answer everything. The email gets inundated. So if you're in my district, please feel free to text me or call me. And I'll be glad to get back with you.
And that number once again, please.
864-396-3110.
Representative John McCravy, God bless, and good luck down there in Columbia finishing up. We'll be watching.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much,
it.
John McCravy. Have a good one. All right, that was John McCravy right here live on the air with us here this morning. So, most interesting conversation, I think. I certainly enjoyed getting some, what I would consider at this point, some real insight into what is happening down there. And it really is sad that we've had this debacle with Republicans. This certainly doesn't look good. I've had some comments come in here this morning. One of them, one of our texters says, y'all are simply rearranging deck chairs on the ship of the state while the ship is sinking. How can a young family making $30,000 a year possibly buy a house for $300,000? That's impossible. That is true. That is why I think Greenwood County is looking at, the city and Greenwood County are looking at some of the things that have been out there. Also, let's see, another it's sad that Republicans cannot even get along long enough to work together. Who needs the Democrats at this point? I'm telling you right, that is the truth. The Republicans are almost like eating themselves rather than working together to do what is good for our state. And we're not even talking about the Senate. We're not even talking about the Senate. And I didn't even bring up Curtis Loftus because I wanted to keep it on what we were discussing today. So this, of course, Facebook Live will be available almost immediately after the show. So if you missed it or you want to go back or you got away and came back, you can certainly go back and listen to it. Or watch it, either way. It seems to me that Representative John McCravy has really sees that this is an impossible situation. I was glad to hear that Hillary Crago has already been on it with Representative McCravy. This just came out in District 50 on Friday when they had their district meeting. And like I said, at 5 o'clock today, we're going to be discussing this information with John Kynard, who is a member of the school board, and he will be coming on and try to explain it. You can also go back and watch the district work session that they had from the school district, and it is posted. The direct link is posted on our Facebook Live that will be coming up this afternoon at 5. This is a very important issue, and that is why that we cannot have our schools cut $1 million here in Greenwood. Again, though, I understand that this goes back to something that they did back in 2023, and this new formula, and that is what is causing the problem is that they're starting this. It's just like so many other things. It's kind of like the liquor liability. We didn't even talk about that one. Where's that going? I guess I should have brought that one up. But the liquor liability, those new levels that they had required originally that caused so many businesses to go out, had actually been done years ago, and they just decided to enforce it. Well, when they enforced it, they didn't make any changes or anything, so now they're at the point of trying to make some changes. But it's still not happening. It really is a shame to see this at a time where President Donald Trump, won the election overwhelming across this country. South Carolina has been a red state for forever, as far as I know. I mean, since the Republicans started. But to see what is happening in our own state, that Republicans cannot, I repeat, cannot work together for the common good of the common man here in South Carolina. I highly recommend that you call your legislatures and let them know what you feel about this. we did get Representative McCravy's number here. Let's see. Let's give that out again. Nope. Let's go back over here and see if I can get that number for you real quick. Would love to give you that one because he needs to know that, number one, that he has the support. He also needs to know that that you want certain things done. So his number is 864-396-3110. That is 864, of course, for John. Let's get Billy's number. Billy Garrett, 864-554-0963. I would call. If you don't get through on a call, I would text them because they do, I know, read their texts. And Daniel Gibson, who is in the house, and let's see, where is it? Daniel, 864-396-0245. I know we don't actually always hear that much from Daniel here on WCRS, but he would be a valuable resource to reach out and let them know what they think about what is happening on the school district for sure, because this is an immediate need. And as I said, I do not see how they can do all the things that they have to do in the 3 days that are remaining. So they've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and they are done. And they are not going to be able to extend the session. They're done. So if they don't do something about the school districts, this could be catastrophic for what is happening. So I hope you're going to tune in this afternoon. I hope if you get a chance that you'll go back and check out that the video that is posted out there. There's lots of information that's posted out there. Contact. Let our legislators know that we're not going to stand for this, and let's see what we can do. But please tune in at 5 o'clock where John Kynard will be my guest. We're still trying to see if somebody else would like to come on. I really commend John Kynard for standing up and saying, Ann, I want to come on and talk about this. I think you should know there are others that said, no, can't do it. Oh, no, don't want to go there. But John Kynard has agreed to come on, and I appreciate him very much for wanting to come on and do what we can do so that $1 million does not have to find its way from some other place to try to save this. And you know what that other place is? Taxes, folks, millage increase. These are the things that could happen, and it is all because of what the House and Senate passed as a law several years, or a budgeting formula from 2023. This is not something they did currently. They did it in 2023. It's now coming up and is being applied this year. So, on Cinco de Mayo, we'll be talking with John Kynard at 5 o'clock. And I want to say this. Yes, if I got my hat on. Get your hat on straight, Ann. There we go. I got my Cinco de Mayo hat. I got my shakers here this morning. And I hope that we're able to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. There are lots of events going on all across the city. So get out there and celebrate, but please tune in at 5 o'clock because this is an important topic. Cinco de Mayo. Have a margarita. Have a good time, but be here at 5. That's going to do it for me right here on WCRS Radio. People often say, Ann Eller, you're nuts. And you know what? I think I am, but I have a good time. That's going to do it for us right here on WCRS. Thanks for tuning in this morning.